Hello there.
This is where the fun begins.
Hey there guys, Unofficial Star Wars here. I hope you're all doing well, and in this video we're going to be taking a deeper dive on into The Mandalorian Season 3's Major Jedi Reveal Explained. Who exactly saved Grogu during the events of Order 66? Now of course I discussed plenty of this in our breakdown video here on the overall episode, Season 3, Episode 4 of The Mandalorian, out now here on the channel, so you guys can also check that video out as well, but in this video I really want to specifically focus on the Jedi KELLERAN BEQ. In Chapter 20, the most recent episode of The Mandalorian included an important flashback sequence about what happened to Grogu during the events of Order 66 and the Jedi that had saved him. This is one of the longest standing questions and fan theories that have been circulating and going around ever since the reveal of Grogu. And so since the very first episode of The Mandalorian all the way back in 2019, fans have had a multitude of questions regarding Grogu, or Baby Yoda. The second episode of the series revealed that he is Force sensitive, but beyond that, the character has been shrouded in mystery for the eternity of the first 2.5 seasons at this point, bearing a brief scene in Season 2 that confirmed he was at the Jedi Temple during the events of Order 66 as seen in Revenge of the Sith and throughout lots of other pieces of Star Wars media. One of the trailers for Season 3 had teased that Grogu's past would be uncovered at some point during this current batch of episodes in this season when a shot of the Jedi Temple was included. However, the latest episode went even further than expected and actually revealed the Jedi that had saved him. And so when the flashback sequence had started in Chapter 20, multiple Jedi shielded Grogu from the incoming clone troopers that were storming the Jedi Temple during Order 66. Unfortunately, the clones were too overpowering for the Jedi, but they did manage to get Grogu into an elevator that sent him straight down to someone named KELLERAN. And after moments of suspense of the elevator going up and to reveal of who the Jedi Master was that had saved Grogu during those events of Order 66, as I had mentioned, one of the longest standing questions I feel like in recent Star Wars, when the doors of the elevator opened, Jedi Master KELLERAN BEQ quickly pulled Grogu out. This Jedi was played by none other than the Star Wars veteran Aham Best, the actor that most notably portrayed Jar Jar Binks in the prequel trilogy. And why is this so important to me as a Star Wars fan? Aham Best, who plays Jar Jar Binks in the prequel trilogy, received utmost a lot of hate back in the day. From grown men, mind you, at that time, and me being a younger kid when those movies were coming out and when I had watched those movies, I loved Jar Jar. I never thought that anybody could hate on him, and also the fact that the media, well, social media wasn't all that much of a thing back then. So to see Aham Best doing well and getting what he does deserve, and playing such a significant and important, crazy cool role in Star Wars is amazing, beyond amazing for me. And so although this does mark the canon debut for Best's KELLERAN BEQ character, the Jedi Master was actually created first as the fictional host of the Jedi Temple Challenge Run show, children's game show that was created for Star Wars kids here on YouTube. And I also thought that, of course, aside from being in the role of Jar Jar Binks and for all the hate that he had received in that role, the Jedi Temple Challenge show had received quite poorly, I think, as well, and wasn't necessarily treated as well by Star Wars themselves. That show should have been on Disney+, not YouTube. Anyway, after Grogu had left the elevator with this new Jedi companion, the fighting didn't stop and only picked up. Another group of clones rounded the corner of the temple and opened fire in the direction of KELLERAN BEQ and Grogu, but KELLERAN BEQ quickly pulled out 2 lightsabers and defended them both before jumping on a speeder and fleeing the temple grounds. And so, as KELLERAN BEQ and Grogu speed through the busy traffic lanes of Coruscant, they were chased by 2 LAAT gunships, each carrying a fair number of clone troopers aboard. BEQ was able to lead one into a tunnel and cause it to crash onto a train, but their speeder had taken some damage. KELLERAN BEQ and Grogu continued through Coruscant and actually drove past Umate, the peak of the highest mountain on Coruscant that was showcased in Chapter 19, when Dr. Pershing and Elia Kane were walking through level 5127 on Coruscant. And while still being chased by the gunships, BEQ and Grogu fly toward a landing platform where they have a rough landing. As we see sitting on the platform was an H-type Nubian yacht, which is an extremely high-class ship built specifically for the royal house of Naboo. As KELLERAN BEQ had mentioned before they take off from the Jedi Temple, he says that he has some friends waiting for him. This ship also served to a bit of an Easter egg back to the Phantom Menace, Menace, as it is the same type of ship that Padme Amidala and Anakin Skywalker used also in not just the Phantom Menace, but also in Attack of the Clones at some point when they traveled to Tatooine and Geonosis. And so after hitting the landing platform, some members of the Royal Naboo security forces ask Ahmed Best's character about the others from the Jedi Temple that made it out alive, to which he replied by saying there are no others. The LAAT, or LAT, gunship landed shortly after Kelleran Beq and Grogu had made their landing. They began taking out the Naboo security forces as Kelleran Beq quickly fired up the Nabion yacht so he and Grogu could escape. I find it kind of weird, I think, to a point that the clone troopers just saw the Naboo guards and started shooting at them too because they were simply helping the Jedi. I don't really ever feel like that's something I've seen before in Star Wars, like in the Clone Wars or in, Jedi Fallen Order or anything like that, so I feel like that's something a little bit new. But of course, as we also do know, is that the clones were of course ordered to kill the Jedi, and they would, stop anything that would try to get in their way at the same time as well. So after taking some fire to their rear deflector shields, Kelleran Beq and Grogu successfully made it out of Coruscant's atmosphere and jumped to hyperspace. However, the question regards to where is Kelleran Beq taking Grogu, and I think the further question could be and stands is Kelleran Beq still alive and out there during the events of The Mandalorian? Now, unfortunately, the flashback in The Mandalorian's latest episode ended before it was revealed where Kelleran Beq was ultimately going to take Grogu following their escape from Coruscant and the Jedi Temple. However, we can say and tell for the time being, it sounds like that they're safe after making that jump from hyperspace. However, I think that there's so many different other possibilities and directions of that they can go, and I feel like there's more of a story for them to tell with these Order 66 flashbacks that they should and can tell, leading us to the events of where Grogu might have met up with Mando in the Season 1. There are a few possibilities that previous Star Wars series have introduced that could explain how Grogu stayed hidden for so many years until he was a bounty target for Din Djarin. It is unlikely that Kelleran Beq would take Grogu to be in long-term care for another Jedi. After all, Kelleran Beq himself had the rank of Jedi Master, and was well known for taking care and helping Padawans before Order 66. However, it is equally unlikely that Kelleran Beq would keep Grogu in his own care, even if he was able to and would offer the best protection. Kelleran Beq likely knows that the newly formed Empire is now on the hunt for all remaining Jedi, so he already probably realized that Grogu would be in more danger just by being with him. So the question simply remains on where did Kelleran Beq take Grogu? One option can stand as the Obi-Wan Kenobi's The Path, as The Path is something that we saw in the Obi-Wan Kenobi Disney Plus show. When Obi-Wan and Leia found themselves on the planet of Mapuzo, which is the first time that Obi-Wan Kenobi fights Darth Vader since the events of Revenge of the Sith, they were introduced to what is called The Path by Tala. And essentially described as sort of a underground network, The Path was able to safely smuggle Jedi from planet to planet after the events of Order 66 and keep them out of the eyes of the Empire. Even though that network would not have been created or in operation at the time that Kelleran Beq and Grogu were fleeing, since it was so shortly after, there was a character mentioned in Obi-Wan Kenobi in relation to the Path that could have helped Grogu. That there being Quinlan Vos. Ahsoka Tano stated in Chapter 13 of The Mandalorian that Grogu was hidden from the Empire after Order 66, and that his past was dark and fearful. If Kelleran Beq does have knowledge of the Path and meets up with Quinlan Vos to get Grogu to safety, he could be the first person transported through the underground network. And so, as we also know, it has been revealed in Obi-Wan Kenobi that Quinlan Vos had spent time smuggling younglings to safety through what is called the Path. This would also line up perfectly with Ahsoka's comments, as it would be understandable for a child such as Grogu to be so afraid of being moved around by people he wasn't exactly familiar with. This could also explain the fact that he was hidden from the Empire since he was taken off of Coruscant and had been off the grid essentially. It is also important to remember that these Star Wars shows on Disney Plus are currently trying to maintain a certain continuity between them, which is also very important, as they're all taking place in the same timeline and within the same universe, of course. And so even though the Obi-Wan Kenobi show isn't technically a part of what is called the Mandoverse, having the connective tissue between the two shows of Grogu using the Path would make sense. As I had mentioned, they're all a part of, well, the bigger Star Wars universe out there. So this here all being said, when will the next Grogu flashback occur and take place? Grogu's past is slowly being revealed over the course of The Mandalorian. That being said, there is a chance that Season 3 will not include any more flashback scenes answering any of the remaining questions, and rather that's something that they could say for future seasons of the show, or even other shows a part of what is the Mandoverse, such as the Ahsoka show. Ahsoka is going to be the next big live-action Star Wars show on Disney Plus, coming out a little bit later this year, so it could make sense. However, as time progresses, the truth will eventually be uncovered. It is possible that KELLERAN actually did end up keeping Grogu and taking care of him, but it is not likely all that much. One also has to wonder whether KELLERAN is still out there, and if he managed to evade the Empire for roughly a solid 28 years after the events of Order 66, which is quite a long time, and the start of The Mandalorian, but really only time will tell. I would love to see his character team up with Mando and other fan favorite characters a part of the Mandoverse. I think it would be something that would be so cool. That there is just about everything that we know about the Order 66 flashbacks and KELLERAN character. I'm best, of course, playing that character. And of course, I would love to hear all of your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. Do you want to see more KELLERAN appear in the Mandalorian in like the current time period, or do you want him to maybe stick to just the flashbacks? I would love to hear all of your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. Also, I think the important fact is that, of course, we didn't have anybody, significant or crazy all that much rescue Grogu, and of course, with all the different wild fan theories out there being that it could have been Mace Windu or Barriss Fee, it could have been Quinlan Vos, are of course all likely and cool options, but having a new Jedi, I think at that, KELLERAN is something that's honestly cool, and it feels nice. It feels more normal, rather, and less forced at that. Anyway, of course, I would love to hear all of your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. Of course, this has been Unofficial Star Wars, and thank you so much for watching today's video. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a great one, guys. May the Force be with you as always. Peace out.